was storming pretty hard, and I really didn't want to go on this trip, but my father insisted. He said it would be good to build character and to bond a little more. Ever since I was little, I've always hated camping. Quite frankly, I've always hated the outdoor nature. But my dad, on the other hand, was really fond of it. He said I needed to get out more and put down all the video games and stop watching so much television. It'll rot my brain. I could never really understand why he would say that, as I was getting better grades than most of the kids in my grade, so I didn't really see a problem. Anyways, here we were today, arriving at the Appalachian Mountains. Already I was thinking about what type of games I would play on my phone to get the days over with faster, when suddenly he sprung up the, "You're leaving all your technology here. We're gonna really be in tune with nature on this one. No technology and no canned or bagged food items. We catch what we eat and we create our own fires in our own shelters." Of course I argued this and said, "What? Why? How are we gonna ever find our way through? How are we gonna even live? That's dangerous, Dad. We shouldn't do that." Before I could continue on my rant on why this was stupid and dangerous, he pulled up a map and a compass and said, "This is all we need. That and a knife, a tinderbox, and some other tools." He said, "Everything we need can be fit in our bags and our waistband. Nothing more and nothing less. Stop being so spoiled. I'm sick of it. Tonight, all that changes." What would you kids do nowadays if the apocalypse happened tomorrow? "You kids and your technology," he mumbled off as he was getting out of the car. We had just arrived. It was dusk by now, and something didn't feel right. Everything was very ominous and dark, but that's usually how a forest looks anyways. But this time, it was a little different. I had been camping before in many different forests, and this one just didn't feel right. "Are you coming?" my dad yelled as he was already starting to walk away. "I found a great trail up ahead. Come on," he exclaimed. I sighed and grabbed my things and caught up to him. We started up this long trail, and it started off pretty flat before starting to steep up this narrow passageway. "We need to find a clear and open path for us to set up camp before night comes, so we must hurry," he said. It was a few hours of hiking by now, and the sun was really setting, but something still felt off, really off. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but it felt like we were being watched by someone or something. I just brushed it off each time, assuming that it could be some wildlife here and there. I didn't say anything to my dad, because I didn't want him to get re-annoyed of my constant nagging and complaining about everything. We finally found a campsite that we could definitely use, and we started setting up camp. We gathered sticks and stones to make a fire, started setting up the tarp and making our tent. We didn't eat that night because we had already eaten just before we left the house. I was sorta already exhausted from that little hike, and so I quickly fell asleep. It was now morning, and nothing had really happened overnight. I actually slept pretty good. My dad had already been awake, and he was frying up some fish over the campfire. He had gotten up pretty early to go down to the river and fish. We ate our breakfast pretty fast, and got ready and set out to go hiking even deeper this day. It was a very beautiful and peaceful morning. You could hear the birds chirping, the winds gusting through the trees as the leaves rattled a tune. But all of this beauty would change soon enough. As we headed in deeper and deeper, the trees seemed to get taller and taller. The canopy of leaves over us seemed to cover up the sun more and more until there was more shadow than there was sun rays poking through the leaves. That in itself made the forest look almost enchanted. At this point, I couldn't really hear the birds chirping anymore, but I could hear owls hooting all around us. I asked my dad, how much deeper and how much further are we going in, as it had been 5 hours of hiking by this point. He said, "Not too much longer, son. I just want to get over this hill and check out what's on this other side." I heard there was a pretty majestic view of the whole mountain range at this peak. And just as I was about to reply, I heard a bush rattling right behind me. So I stopped, froze, and swiftly turned around to see what it was. And then I looked back at my dad, and he was no longer there. He just completely vanished. He was just there a moment ago, not even a couple feet away from me. I had just heard his voice. My heart sank because I knew this was impossible. He was just there. There's no way he could have gone anywhere and I wouldn't have seen him right now, or at least heard him. I called out his name multiple times and searched the nearby area. He couldn't have gotten far. If he had fallen, he couldn't have fallen that far, as it was not that steep in this area we were in. After searching for him for 30 minutes without any luck, I really started to freak out and cry. I didn't know where I was. He had the compass too. I was screwed, to say the least. And then it also hit me. Damn it, I didn't bring my phone, or any technology for that matter. I was literally a sitting duck. By this time it started to rain a lot, so I needed to find shelter really fast, and all our footsteps had been washed away too if there were any. This was just perfect. I started to cry hysterically. Wow, I'm really gonna die out here, aren't I? But after moments of feeling pity for myself, I snapped out of it. What would my dad do? What would he say in this situation? I started to try to think like him. I still had my own supplies, so I started setting up shelter with whatever sticks and branches I could find, made a little bit of a mud wall, and used the tarp to sleep on, and another tarp to provide a roof over my head as to keep me as dry as possible. It was getting colder and colder by the second, so cold that I knew if I didn't warm up soon, I would definitely be getting hypothermia. The layers I had on weren't good enough. I needed to make a fire somehow. Just then, I remembered I had a small tinderbox that my dad had given me just in case. And I knew I had some paper inside my backpack in case I wanted to draw or write something if I was that bored. So I quickly gathered up a bunch of Kindle and tried to dry it off as best as I could and began to make a fire. It worked, and I was super relieved. I also didn't worry about food right now. I just wanted to get this day over with and survive the night. But this would prove to be the longest and most difficult night of my life. I fell asleep for a few hours, but then was suddenly woken up by some nearby rattling I heard outside of my tent. This lasted for about 10 minutes, as I also heard footsteps in the mix getting closer and closer to my tent, until they were so close I could see them standing right outside of my tent, and I could hear breathing. I was so paralyzed in fear that the only things that could come out of my mouth were, "Dad?" But as soon as I said that, I heard the loudest roar I had ever heard in my entire life. A roar so distinctly different from anything I've ever heard. It almost sounded like half human, half something else. And just then, I saw a huge shadow of an arm come and swipe away my tent with one huge blow. I flew out into the rain. Mud, leaves, sticks, branches, everything flown with me. The impact was so hard that I lost consciousness immediately. It wasn't until the next morning that I woke up inside of a park ranger shelter. I asked, "What happened? Where's my dad? Where am I?" "Calm down and don't move. I'm a park ranger and you're at our headquarters. You're lucky we found you when we did. As for your dad, I have no idea. We only found you and all your supplies just scattered." "Last night, what was that thing?" I exclaimed. "Son, I don't know what you're talking about. There was nothing there, nor signs that anything had been there. You're lucky we were doing one last round of patrol, and we happened to see your campfire, so we kind of got a little closer to check it out when we saw everything scattered, we got a little suspicious and went in to see what had happened. And luckily we did, because we found you unconscious. But you said you were with one other person, right? Was that your dad? Yeah, we had camped the night before, and we were just going on a hike, and suddenly, he just vanished into thin air right in front of me. I don't know where he went. He didn't make a noise or anything. I swear he was just a couple feet in front of me, and I searched and I couldn't find him anywhere, so I decided to make my own camp as the rain came in. Okay. Well, I'll notify the authorities and I'll send out a search party for now. We'll try to find him. Don't worry. But years later, as I'm telling the story, they never did find him, and I never knew what happened to him. And to this day, I don't know what that thing was that was lurking outside of my tent, or whatever took, or whoever took my dad. Like I said, he just vanished, not making a single noise. 1 second he's there, I turn around, and right back, and the next second he's gone. Just like that. The mountains and forests are a very strange place, full of paranormal things, or unexplained things that happen. I don't know if that was Bigfoot, a feral person, alien abduction, or what, but all I can say is I'll never step back into the woods. I'll never even get close to another mountain again. I'm traumatized, and just the thought of that night, well, let's just say I still have dreams about it. Whatever was outside of my tent was too real, and I know I didn't imagine that.